I think quite recently there was an announcement by media outlets that the government are looking towards increasing the prices of fuel. This I think would be the RON 95 and also diesel, right? And there were some analyst houses. One of them is Hong Leong. They were saying that they expect the prices of fuel to maybe go up by about 60%, right? And what they basically did was they looked at our price right now, and also look at the price on the global prices for crude oil, and then after that they did their forecast based on that, right? So with that, the impact of the prices of fuel, I think, while many are thinking that should the prices of fuel actually goes up by that particular amount, no problem, they can take the public transport, right? But that being said, no, I think a couple of things has to be said, lah, right? Number one, some people, in terms of accessibility to public transport, some housing areas and also some people, it's a bit difficult to access the public transport lines, lah. Basically, your MRT, your LRT, or the bus lines, right? Sometimes, some way or another, we may have to take maybe the Grab, or we may have to drive on our own. Should the prices of fuel actually increase, what will happen is that our costs of going back and forth the office may increase, right? And if the prices of going back and forth the office increase, right? I think if we were to look at our budgeting method, the 50, 30, 20, 50% are for our basic needs, right? If prices of fuel were to increase, it will fall into the 50% bucket, where, like it or not, we need to spend that particular money in order for us to actually go to the office and back from the office. So, one way or another, our costs would increase, and it's not a want. So if it's a want, then we can say, oh, never mind lah, we don't spend on that particular item. But if it's a need, it's very difficult for us to actually push that cost aside, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is that if someone actually stays by the track, maybe at the LRT or the MRT, while it may not affect that particular person so much, but it will affect us in other ways. Okay, so let me explain. If prices of fuel were to increase, right, what's going to happen is that prices of food will also increase. Surprising, right? So I still remembered many years ago lah, when I went to the mamak lah, I still remembered trying to order a teh tarik, right? At that point in time, they increased the price of fuel by maybe 10 or 20 cents, right? And I still remembered the mama actually told me, he says, oh, harga teh tarik sudah naik. I said, kenapa naik? He says, oh, harga minyak sudah naik. So back then, I could not understand why price of fuel will impact price of teh tarik, or why sometimes when we go to the market to buy our groceries, right? When we want to buy ikan, ayam, whatever lah, when we want to buy the particular item, then we talk to the vendor and says, yang ni berapa? Then they say, oh, kena naik lah 10-20 sen. I said, kenapa pula kan? So they said, oh, harga minyak dah naik. So I said, betul ke ni, right? So I think, long story short, to understand why, if prices of fuel naik, this will impact the price of food, is a very simple explanation lah, right? Right now, assuming if we are looking at rice as an item lah, right? So how the prices of rice may increase is basically like this, right? So from the farm, they need to send it to the processing plant, right? This is where they take the raw rice or maybe the plant, right? And they want to process it. So they bring it from the farm to the processing plant. So that's transport from point A to point B, right? So from the processing plant, they're going to send it to the wholesaler all over the country, right? So that's from point B to point C, right? So this will include the transportation cost lah. So from point A to point B, that's using the transportation once. From point B to point C, it uses transport again, right? And then from the wholesalers, right, what they're going to do is they're going to break it up into all the retail markets. So from the big wholesalers, they're going to break it up into the smaller retails, right? So this is where your kedai runcit will get the beras lah, basically, right? And this is where you get your 10 kg beras or your 5 kg beras after it has been processed and after it has been stored in a warehouse, right? And then after that, from your kedai runcit to our house lah, basically. So basically, we have to go to the kedai runcit, right, to buy the rice. And if we take a car, there will be an increase in also the commute back and forth, right, basically. And that's not for rice only, right? If we were to isolate on fish also, okay, if we were to look at our plate of rice, right, or our dinner, right, it will consist of not only rice, it will consist of fish, maybe chicken, maybe vegetables, right? So all of it, right, even the chicken, right, it could be a chicken farm over in Pahang, right? Over there, they may take the chicken and send it to a processing plant, right? So then again, from the processing plant, then they will have to send it to the storage to freeze the chicken, and then from there, then they'll send it to the wholesalers, and then from the wholesalers they send it to retailers. So everything actually has a complex web of transportation, right? So basically, long story short, if the prices of fuel were to increase, what is going to happen is two things. Number one, we can see that the prices of transport is going to increase, right? Maybe if we take Grab, maybe if we take a bus, right? Their feedstock is fuel, right? Second thing is if we drive, I think this is where we'll feel it the most, right? And not only going back and forth the office, but also maybe going to our weekend, wherever we want to go for the weekend, or when we want to balik kampung. Also, it'll be a little bit more expensive, right? And then on top of that, it's also everything that we touch. And I'm only covering food, right? Also look at things that are around us, like our pen, our paper, things that we use on a daily basis, maybe our coffee, right? Everything is going to increase in price. I think some people actually say that fuel is like very close to inflation. So if you increase prices of fuel, right, automatically a lot of things around us would increase, right? So right now, I think the big question is, right, since we are a financial channel, right, is what can we do, basically, right? What can we do? And I'm telling you what I'm currently doing, basically, right? So basically, should the prices of everything increase, right? The very basic financial advice we will always get is save, right? And every time when I hear that advice, right, I just try to hit my head against the wall, I mean, like, right now in Malaysia, it's so hard to save. And every time when I hear that 50, 30, 20, I feel like I want to scream already. The whole thing of it all is that it just doesn't make sense, right? And I talked about this in my earlier episode, whereby, if you're a fresh grad, earning about 3K, right? If we use a 50, 30, 20, right? If we take 50% for our basic needs, which will be rental, our transport, and also our electricity, right? And our food, right? And also rental, yeah. So all of that combined, right? 1,005 living in KL, and assuming if we are a fresh grad, first time in Kuala Lumpur, there are no parents around us, say maybe our parents are in a kampung, this doesn't even make sense. How can someone live on 1,005 per month, right? Okay, so that's for a 20-year-old. For a 30-year-old, right? The next thing is that, how about a 30-year-old, right? Should 30-year-olds, we are already more stable, we should be able to save a little bit more. But that being said, there are a couple of things which the 30-year-old may have to go through, which is number one, if they're not married yet, they have their car expenses, they also have their house expenses. Both of them are loans, right? And those are big loans, right? And assuming, and if we were to look at the history of things, if we look at the OPR, we will notice that OPR has been increasing. I think the past 2 years, I think it has been increasing. So every time when OPR increases, right, what will happen is that our housing loan and our car loans will get more and more expensive, right? And on top of that, tiba-tiba there's also an increase in fuel prices and an increase in food prices. All of a sudden, not only OPR is increasing, food prices and also fuel prices, right? So even for a 30-year-old also, they will feel the pinch. 40-year-olds, right? This is where maybe if they are already married, right? They also maybe have kids, right? On top of that, they also have parents. This is called the sandwich generation. Not only they have to pay for their parents' expenses, they also have to pay for the young ones, right? And right now, if prices of things were to go up, it's 3x, right? You have to pay parents inflation and also the kids inflation. So yeah, I mean, it's very, very expensive. And 50-year-old, I think a lot of people are actually looking towards winding down and also retiring, right? And quite honestly, yeah, when I hear like I said, when I hear the 50, 30, 20, I'm like, oh, who comes up with all of this frameworks and whatnot, right? So I think long story short, what I'm trying to say, right, is this lah, right? Every time when I even talk to people which are working in their 20s, in their 30s, right? I talk to them and I ask them, I have financial literacy seminars, and I also have retirement seminars also. And I asked them, I said, quite honestly, how many people, room of 30 people, room of 40 people, and I do this quite regularly. Yeah? I asked them, I said, is it possible for them to save 20%? Not one can put up their hands. And then I says, is it possible for them to save any money? And most of them also find it very difficult to save money, right? I think call a spade lah, right? I think with our wages not catching up, right? And on top of that, things are getting a bit more expensive, right? It's a bit difficult, like it or not lah, whatever way we slice it and dice it, right? So I think what financial advice, or where can we move from here on, right? So let me tell you a couple of case studies which I've came across, right? And hopefully you guys can take benefit from this now. So I've been talking to a couple of people, right? And I have already realized that right now is a new norm where people don't have only one jobs. I actually met someone which I actually spoke to someone, I think this week, a couple of days back. This guy actually has 3 jobs. And I'm like, what? How is that even possible, right? 2 jobs is already a new norm. 2 jobs, right? They work in their office, and then after that, when they clock out, they will just turn on the Grab, and they just do Grab for 2 or 3 hours, and then after that they take they take salary and also their side hustle money, and then after that it's enough for them to survive, right? But 3 jobs I have not heard, right? So I was really curious how this guy actually did 3 jobs. So you already know about 2 jobs, right? The third job is during the weekends. This person actually does an online e-commerce store. So when he's free, so imagine 9 to 5. We work in the office, right? Half tired, right? And we are already like almost a lot of energy gone. Then on top of that, you have to drive, right? And then after that, you just drive maybe 3 or 4 hours in the traffic. And then after that, this person actually gets back, and maybe one of the things he does for his third side hustle is actually doing e-commerce, right? And this is where you can actually sit down, you can look at your stocks, you can see what's popular, what's not popular, and you can actually sell accordingly lah, basically. So long story short, is this lah. I think right now more and more I can see that having a side hustle already a new norm. Right? A new norm, basically, right? And I think as things get a bit more expensive, I think this new norm will probably be here to stay, lah, basically, right? And the next thing is like, how are we going to even increase from then on, right? So let me give you an example of content creators like myself, right? And first, I'll share with you the framework, and then I'll tell you a story about content creators, right? So the framework is this, Number one, pick a side hustle. Pick a side hustle, right? Which has 3 of these criteria, right? Make sure that you are passionate about it. Make sure that you really love it, right? For me, I cannot work on a side, something on the side if I don't like it, right? I mean, bad enough already, we already have our 9 to 5, get back from work, so tired, traffic and then whatnot, and then after that you have to turn on the PC just to do side hustle. Wow, that's quite tiring, right? So for me personally, I want to make sure that I'm passionate about it, right? So that's my first criteria. Second criteria is that I'm good or that we are good on it lah, basically, right? So this one you have to ask yourself lah, right? Where you have your degree, when you have time, what do you read about, and sometimes if people actually, in a crowd of friends, right? Do people come up to you and what help do they ask from you, right? And assuming if a lot of people are asking for help with regards to baking a cake, maybe that's your calling. Maybe that's what your specialty is. Or maybe sometimes when in a crowd of people, someone asks you how to, open or improve PowerPoint slides. Maybe that's your calling, right? So, right. So this is what you're good at, lah, right? And then the other questions which I would like maybe us to explore, right, is what do we like to do, basically, right? When we are free, right, after work, what do we like to do, right? Aside from Netflix lah, and aside from scrolling into social media, right? Do we maybe like to bake? Do we maybe like to cook? Do we like to talk? Do we like to explain stuff, right? So that's our passion lah, right? And another question is, as kids, what do we really love to do, right? When we were young, what do we really put our time and spend our time just exploring and thinking about, right? And the third thing, which I said, is whether there's a demand in the market for our skills. If there's intersection for these three things, then maybe start that particular side hustle, right? So, if any of you guys are yet to maybe explore something lah, or just say, maybe not, right? I just want to tell you guys lah that right now I've been seeing a trend, and it's been very, very common. A lot of my students also having 2 jobs, right? And like I said lah, that day when I heard, 3 jobs, how is that even possible? And then he explained to me. I said, oh, okay. Now I understand, right? So if you guys are thinking of ways to increase salary, right? Maybe look towards another side hustle. And if you guys are thinking what side hustle, as I mentioned, what do you like to do, right? The questions which I ask is, what do you like to do when you're a kid? What do you like to do when you're free? Second question is, what you're good at. These are questions where your friends ask you, if they need help. Do they need help in baking, or do they need help in sewing something, right? What are the questions maybe mom and dad also ask you? Say, hey, son, hey, daughter, can you help me do this or you do that, right? And finally, whether there's a demand for that particular product lah, or your services, right? So for me, I'll just end it with this particular story, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers now. For me, I was always a storyteller, and I prefer reading, right? And when I started my side hustle journey, right, I still remembered that everyone was talking about Amazon, and everyone was talking about drop shipping, and everyone is talking about being a reseller and whatnot, right? So for me, I always felt like, alamak, why can't I be a reseller, or why can't I be a t-shirt printer, or why can't I, a lot of these side hustles, it always came to me, but I never did it lah, basically, right? I had zero passion on it. So basically, I think one day lah, as some of you may know lah, I went through a VSS, right? And during that time, it gave me an opportunity to explore different things. I realized my skill was to learn and to share, right? And that was why I actually started, starting my social media channels, right? Not only over here, but other social media sites. And when I first started, it was not the best, Every time when I shot a video, when I saw someone pass me, I would hide the video, or when I hear someone knocking the door, I'll just turn off, It was hard. It was very, very hard. And my first few videos, right? You guys can look at my first few videos. I did not even show my face, right? And I was, it wasn't very good videos lah, right? And I wasn't sure what I was saying, right? That said, after creating videos after videos after videos, from getting 0 views for my first few videos, and then I started getting 10 views, and then after that maybe 20 views, so on and so forth, I managed to build a small little following, right? And with that small little following, I managed to capture some attention from people within the financial industry, right? And that was where I managed to maybe land myself an opportunity in the financial industry, talking a little bit about financial literacy, right?